When you print the USPS IMB code, there's definitely a right way to do things and a wrong way. When printing the USPS IMB code with an inkjet, it's a well-known fact that there is always going to be dot gain or ink spreading through the material you're inkjetting on, which causes the bars of a barcode to be wider than originally intended to by the software of the inkjet. So the post office is conscious of this. This is a document from the post office that discusses it. So dot gain has to be accounted for when you design your IMB code on your mail piece. The intelligent mail barcode dimensions, there's actually a number of dimensions for an intelligent mail barcode. A lot of people aren't familiar with them. And as professional mailers, having an understanding of these dimensions and having control of these dimensions is critical for success. You'll notice that there is the minimum size of a tall bar can be 0.125, and the maximum size of a tall bar can be 165. In this document, it actually has been changing over the last couple years with the post office. The widths can range from 0.015 to 0.025 for the widths, and that's pretty much for all the barcodes. And what happens in our software, we give you the ability within the postal specs to go within these ranges, which is critical for success because, like we said, the dot gain or the spreadage of the ink in the substrate causes the bar to change sizes as the ink spreads through the mail piece. So it's very critical that as professional mailers you're conscious of these specs and that you use the tools that we've given you to produce an IMB that will pass Merlin. This is a postal document that gives you the basic specs of the IMB as well as the PostNet barcode, but in our software you'll see that we use this terminology. So the bar width is 0.020 plus or minus 0.005. The pitch, that's the bars per inch, is 22 bars plus or minus 2 bars. And you'll notice that our software will say inside this, unless you these specs, except for the shaving option. And then the bar height is 0.145 plus or minus 0.020 inches. So these regulations change time to time, and we have the ability in our software to change them as they do. But for your organization's point of view, these are the main issues they should probably talk about when they discuss standardizing their IMB barcodes, as far as what you as a company want to do as for your standard IMB. There's two basic ways you can print a USPS IMB barcode almost in any printer. We consider one way to be the correct way as professional mailers, and the other way to be highly risky and what we consider the incorrect way to print a barcode. If you look at all these barcodes, they're all the exact same value as far as a barcode. If you'll notice, this one up here has the thickest bars, and we work our way down here, And then not only are these thinner bars, but you'll see it takes up less space than these barcodes up here. And you'll notice that this barcode here is standing out. We'll talk about this in a second. So one of the things we've done in our software is all barcodes we're drawing by the dot. So we have complete control of the width, the height, and the number of bars per inch. For example, if I click onto this one, and you'll notice this with a lot of our barcodes, you'll have options like this. It will ask you, what do you want the bar width to be? And if I click here, there's 4 options. Now these are all within postal specs, but what it does is it gives you the ability to vary the width. And the reason why you would do this is on some substrates, ink spreads as it touches the substrate. So you might start off with a thin barcode, but after it dries, it might spread out. For example, you might do a barcode that's technically this thin, but when it dries, it's this thin. So having this flexibility is critical in the professional mail market. Now over here is how many bars per inch. This is a postal spec. The spec is 22 bars plus or minus 2 bars per inch. So you'll notice that this says 23.077. The reason why that is at 300 dpi, the math doesn't make sense for 24 bars per inch. So you have to do the closest thing, which is 23, and in the middle we have 21.4, and at the end is 20. Now we do also let you adjust the height. The new postal specs currently is 0.125 through 0.145. We default to 135, but you should check that every time you do it. The same is true with dot gain top to bottom. You could have a bar spread out that goes over the postal spec. So it's critical that you understand you control this, and it's up to your quality control department to work with that. Now if we go back to clicking one of these barcodes, you'll notice that the data is numeric, and that is called a digital string. The post office refers to that as a digital string. Now the software for setup has a sample set of data in there. You need to link that to the correct field so you're not printing the same barcode for every record during the job. I don't have a database linked up right now, so I'm not going to hook it up. So right now I have fixed data in there, and there's one more option that I should discuss. We have the bleeding option that lets you actually go further. Now this is going to probably take you outside the postal spec, but if you have an extreme case of bleeding, you can take an additional pixel off the barcode from the width. If I do that, you'll see it got a little bit thinner there. If I do that, it gets real thin. So you got to be careful with that. This would probably work in the thicker barcode. So if you're right on the edge and you just need one more pixel taken off, this is a great way to adjust it so you can be within Merlin spec. So that's the digital string method of doing a barcode, and we feel that's really the only correct way to do it. Now the post office has done what they call a encoded string method, and this is really designed for non-professional mailers, people that use Microsoft Word, or they don't have the access to the printer technology to do it the correct way. So what they've done is created a true type font, or they have mainframe fonts, but fonts do not give you the control over the thickness. You can somewhat do the height by the font size, but that's about it. I mean, if I do 12 here, it's dramatically changed, right? And you have, when it comes down to it, the operating system has control over how fonts are drawn as opposed to the printer. So you really lose a lot of control when you go to this encoded method. And as I stated, it really is not a recommended way for somebody that's a professional in the industry to be producing barcodes. The liability for a proper barcode and mailing is huge. So we just really discourage anybody to do it this way. Now, a lot of people say, I've done it for years and it works. The post office, when they mandate the required IMB in May of 2011 is probably you're gonna probably see a lot more failures for barcode reading than you have in the past. And so we just recommend people go ahead. Almost every software package out there does do the digital encoded method of producing the IMB data. Now, when you're ready to set up a job from scratch for the IMB, it's important to remember that, once again, I can set up a job without a data file. Now, in this case, I have opened up a data file. So I already opened up a data file, and if I go to job, I can see the data here. And the reason why I bring that up is because the IMB is under new barcodes, not the postal. The postal's here, the IMB is here until it's mandatory. It's an optional barcode right now. So if I go down to intelligent mail barcode, it defaults to stagnant data. The reason why is because you can set the postnet barcode right now as the primary postal barcode, and so when you set up a job, you don't need a data file. So that's important to remember, and you can disable that. We have another video that shows you how to disable that, so you have to have a link to a file if you're concerned about that. So the first thing I want to do is get rid of this data and choose a field. In this case, field 1 is my digital IMB data. So I hit OK, and that says field 1 there. And then I want to hit OK. And then what I want to do is show live data. And the first one, because it's the header, it won't show up. So that's correct when I'm in live data mode. And then when I hit right click, the IMB actually shows up, which is correct. And so the next thing I want to do is decide my specs for the IMB. Now, I recommend people, I'm going to be printing 300 DPI. I recommend you do a little bit conservative and say the second to smallest width, which is 183. You're always going to have dot spread or dot gain in a substrate. So I always like to do it a little bit smaller than the widest width, just so I can compensate for that dot gain. And the same thing with the dots, the bars per inch. I'm right in the middle. I don't want to be on the edge of this spec, so it creates problems. The bar height, you can set this up in your config file so that it's the same every time you open up a job. I'm right in the middle, 135. It's right between 125 and 165, 0.165. So I'm right in the middle of the spec there, and that's important. It's important that everybody at your organization understand that your IMB specifications have to be understood. I would standardize, and then if you go outside those standards, it'd be the exception to the rule. So go ahead and apply. And what you'll see is, as I scroll through here, the data changes. So that's the correct way to do the IMB. We don't recommend you use fonts, and we make sure that you're conscious of the USPS IMB specs, and you set the standard for your organization for every job. One more helpful hint. A lot of customers call us and say they can't get the IMB to print at all. And the most common reason this happens is the data in the IMB field is not the proper number of digits. So just to show you, when you're setting up a job, the default number comes up here. And if I take out 3 digits, for example, here, it will come out, and I'm going to hit apply. It will say invalid number of digits. So if I link this to a field that is incorrect, right, field 2, what will happen is, which is not even an IMB field, when I go to live data, you'll notice that it doesn't display at all. You have to have the proper number of digits. Now, we can't tell you that the IMB is the correct data for that record, but we can tell you if it has the proper number of characters per field. So I hit apply, hit the live data. This is a proper IMB, so it works. Matter of fact, the first record is a header field, which is the description of the field, so it doesn't print when I'm in live data. So if you're having a problem doing the IMB, check your digits and make sure you have the proper number of digits.